For the first time since 2006, the 3rd District congressional seat here in the Louisville area has someone other than John Yarmuth in the House. State Senator, Democrat Morgan McGarvey. You've been there for a decade now. You're headed to Washington after all that time helping the Kentucky legislature get stuff done. Have you slept?
No, not at all. It's a whirlwind, and you go through these hard campaigns. They're hard on the families, they're hard on you, and then all of a sudden you get those results in, and it's a whirlwind of activity. It's hard to shut it off.
Yarmuth served for a long time. We talked years ago when you were on a political show I did that this would be a seat for you. You kind of were coy in answering that, but it seemed like that was the natural progression. Your thoughts now that you're there? You're in the minority. Possibly. If this goes the way it seems it's going.
Yeah, well, two thoughts. One, I love being a legislator. I think you know that. I love the policy work. I love trying to find those solutions. I also love the constituent services part, really helping people in their everyday lives. The chance to do that, not just in Frankfurt as I've done, but now to be our representative in Washington is such a cool thing. And then, I've been in the minority. That's where I've been in Frankfurt. So you mentioned going to the minority. Obviously, I'd like to be in the majority, but to go in the minority, I still think the work remains the same. To take that mindset of fighting for the people of Louisville, staying true to what I believe in, but really working to get stuff done. I did it in Frankfurt. I want to do it in Washington.
In Washington, the MAGA representatives, the squad on the other side in the Democratic Party get a lot of the attention and end up having a lot of influence. How do you fit in there and get something done? And what's your number one priority?
Well, I think actually we've gotten a lot of stuff done recently people don't talk about. You focus on more what happens on the extremes, but look, we passed the CHIPS Act, re-incentivizing manufacturing jobs right here in this country. We passed the Inflation Reduction Act, lowering the cost of prescription drugs, taking on climate change, passed a lot of good stuff, and so that's what I'm going to continue to do. Go up and advocate for policy that helps people and makes their everyday lives a little bit better.
What committee assignment would you want? And where do you think you'd have the most impact?
And that's where it really does matter whether you're in the majority or the minority. Energy and Commerce is a great committee. Deals with everything, obviously, from energy and commerce. Healthcare decisions are made there. You asked a big priority of mine. Healthcare is a big priority. Also want to be on education and labor. Education is a big priority of mine. Not just making sure we're investing properly in the current education system, looking at things like universal pre-K, continuing to reinvest in our higher education. Those two committees are of particular importance.
And if it is a razor-thin margin for the Republicans, those committees are more balanced then, and thus you can possibly have more influence being in the minority. How about your family? There's Chris, the 3 children. You've been close in Frankfurt. You've got the twins. I mean, they're near and dear to you, all your children. How do you deal with being in Washington? Have you thought about that? Your family must have talked about it.
Yeah, it's the one thing we really have talked about. I've not looked past election night. There's a graveyard of politicians who've measured the drapes, but one of the things we've talked about is how do we keep our family intact? How do we make sure we do this? That's been a focus since the beginning of the campaign. The family will stay here. I will go back and forth, which is also a really nice incentive to be back in the district more.
The other 5 House members are Republicans, Massey and Guthrie, right here in the Louisville area, representing some people. Have you had a chance quickly to talk to them?
Yeah, I've talked to several of the delegation already. Representative Brett Guthrie, who has the other part of Jefferson County, reached out immediately, has already offered help from his staff in the transition. I think that's the type of collegial spirit people want to see in advocating for Kentucky.
All right, Morgan McGarvey, the new representative of the 3rd District encompassing much of Louisville for the U.S. House of Representatives. Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, Scott.